Alright, so this is the story they're coming out with now. The Woodpecker's so damn bad. Good language. CAL FIRE ID's privately owned poll for Tubbs fire ignition. PG&E is cleared. Okay, now remember, they've identified 13 of the fires, 157 out of 150 they've yet to identify, but now they're identifying the biggest problematic one of them all, the Tubbs fire. The Tubbs fire was up just above in North Santa Rosa. They say it started from the east, came west. What kind of winds go east to west? Came down a canyon, through the canyon, hold, put onto the loop. They say they're too busy to pick up the phone. But who is this guy, John Martinez? So I put in the search engine, Battalion Chief John Martinez, San Mateo County, Santa Cruz Division, their words, and I can't find anything on Mr. John Martinez, fire captain. Well, let's go over here. We found one thing. This is from 2011, and when you look up the highlights, John Martinez, pre-fire engineer. Doesn't say what unit, doesn't say where worked at. This was a document from 2011. That's all I could find. And then I do the images to see if they got a picture of the guy. Well, this is Martinez Chief Police. It's not the San Mateo Santa Cruz Division. There's no pictures of Fire Battalion Chief John Martinez. That can't be Mrs. No. All right, so where is this guy? How does he exist? You know, where is he? He should be on the CAL FIRE's pages. You should be able to have reference to this guy who's the expert, who's restating the entire causal factors of these fires. A year and a half later, they finally got it together. All right, moving on. Caretaker of the property said the privately owned wooden pole that distributed power throughout the rural property was so deteriorated that he planned to replace it the next spring. Well, so they're going to get rid of all private utility poles. That's going to happen next. It was just about to be replaced. He had been woodpeckered so damn bad when it was here and was holding, so we didn't do anything about it, said Mike Andrews. Bet you Mike Andrews doesn't exist either. When asked why it was replaced, well, because we were afraid it was going to fall over. That's why we're going to replace it. It was going to fall over. That's why we're going to replace it. So just to give you, not to make fun of the light of the many people that lost everything and the many people that lives were lost, displaced, many people having post-traumatic stress syndrome, a shell shock from having their homes destroyed overnight, their lives destroyed forever. But they get to play games with us, folks. That's why I'm calling all these officials out. Ignited. Now, there's a new word they're using, ignited. They're not using the word forest fire anymore. They're using ignited. So all the terms about the forest fires that caused all the smoke over Northern California for 8 days after the Paradise Forest fire, the smoke inundated for 8 days over Northern California, is now no longer a forest fire. It's ignited industrial fire. And we're going to get into what they're going to have to connect that with in a minute. CAL FIRE investigators said they could not identify any violations of state law related to the fire, so they're going to have to come up with new regulations. Said that other possible ignition points and those involving PG&E equipment had been eliminated. PG&E off the hook. The termination could alleviate some of the potential liability against the beleaguered utility company. So the private wire theory, new term, has been out there for about a year now, and our view is that it is not an accurate finding. And I find it very suspicious that it would come out within 5 days of when PG&E is going to file bankruptcy. Well, here's all the Santa Rosa, all the ambulance-chasing lawyers who are jumping on the bandwagon to sue the crap out of PG&E, getting everybody to sign on to sue PG&E when their liabilities on the PG&E are greatly reduced by this finding. Guess what, lawyers? You're screwed again.
So to be really clear, they're using the term fire ignition now rather than forest fires because they have to explain how some homes got torched and others didn't, down to dustification, down to ashes. Steel melts at 3,000 degrees, porcelain, granite tops, all disintegrated. So they couldn't explain it because a forest fire only burns up to 1,700 degrees tops. So now they have to come up with the fire ignition theory. Okay, let's all learn what the fire ignition theory is about. Well, the fire triangle, the fire needs to ignite heat, fuel, and oxygen, usually unoxidizing agent. Heat, fuel, and oxidizing. So they're going to be coming up with this fire ignition theory, and they've been writing about it now for a while. Fire damage to California homes isn't as random as it seems. December 11, 2017. And it goes on to state that here that small embers are instead often the culprits that begin house fires during the wildfires. Often the culprits. How many people have heard of this before? These small bits of burning debris can be lofted by distances by the wind. Small bits of burning debris that they're going to tell us and blow smoke up our asses and put all these people homeless without getting retribution. Sorry, it's just sad. Is because the embers that you could literally flying around people as they're walking around paradise are all of a sudden hot enough and get enough spark to get into the HVAC systems. Here's how they say it. They can end up igniting landscaping materials like combustible mulch or enter homes through vulnerable spots, gutters teeming with debris, unscreened attic vents, open broken windows, old roofs with shingles, and in California, iconic winds work to create ember-driven ignition conditions. All right, so they're putting in all the buzzwords here, and here's a new buzzword they just put in. Now, we all know about the Santa Ana winds, but we don't know about the Diablo. Diablo means devil. Mount Diablo is south of us. The winds came from the east to the north, but they're saying these Diablo winds go over the 12,000-foot Sierra Nevadas now, new term, and blow from east to west under the red flag warning days now they've just created. Like red flag, 20 miles an hour or more, they can turn off your power. Here's the other thing with PG&E now getting off the hook. PG&E is shutting off our power preemptively in case more fires burn because they're saying it's because of the fires on the ground that were combusting to start the fires. And that's why Brown's talking about logging all the wood because of all the combustible material, the fuel that caused the fires. Well, guess what? We don't have to do that anymore now, right? Because it's now ignition fires from the embers. Well, how hot do embers get, folks? How hot do embers get? So what they're going to do, folks, and here they're back and they're promoting it like they're going to just be selling this. Here's an article, another one from Marin Fire Safe. It talks about how this is how they're going to explain it to us all about how this works. Should these embers land or near your home, they could just as easily, ignite nearby vegetation or accumulate debris or enter the home or attic through openings or vents, igniting furnishings or combustible debris in these locations. And then you're gonna see them trot out probably this report, the Royal Society of England, and talk about the combustions of igniting fuel with the embers, and the fuel will be the HVACs, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning units in our homes that either sucked it up when the heating was on and sucked the embers in, came in through the vents, or were sucked up when your air conditioning was on. This is how they're going to explain it away for destroying the properties where the embers got in, found your house, blew it up, and caused all 3,000-degree temperatures to exist to torture iron bathtub, to torture porcelain, to torture granite countertops, to torture stone walls. And this isn't the first time this happened. Listen to this from Sasha, who I talked to yesterday about this, and she was talking about what she had just heard. Listen to this.
Minutes. So I have on the phone Sasha, who's up in the Paradise area, who came down for our meet and greet in Berkeley last week. It was really a pleasure to interview her and Matt. It was very critical information. And she's providing us with some other critical information here. And I want Sasha, can you just retell what you just told me about your conversation that you're just reading today about the ignited fires and how they're blaming it on ignition in homes? And Sasha, you asked a question to a retired fire captain or fire official you knew. Could you tell us?
That's my impression. That is my impression of his rank or whatever. I believe he told me that he was retired, and I think he said he was, somebody who was in charge. I don't know if he was a captain or whatever. This was after a type of a town hall type meeting early on after the events in Paradise. And by the way, I live in Chico. I'm not in Paradise, but I have been communicating with lots of people. Back to my question of this retired fire person, when I asked this specific question was, why so often we're seeing homes burned and the vegetation surrounding the homes is unaffected. It looks like the houses are burning from the inside out. And he said, yeah, that we're really seeing that. We think It's embers possibly coming in through the HVAC systems, heating or air conditioning systems, drawing in outside air through the ventilation ducts, and that it's burning, it's getting into the system and causing a fire that way. That didn't make sense to me, particularly given the amount of homes that look like this. I'm not a fire engineer, and I just took that information and I filed that away, so I could leave it at that.
Thank you, Sasha. So they're going to be sending the president that it's going to be a fire ignition theory that's causing all this. Well, who wants to set the world on fire? Saint Ignatius, Saint Ignite Us. They've been telling us what they're going to do for a very, very long time, and they're executing their plans to perfection, changing the story, and no one is raising Cain about anything about how they're changing the world, how they're torching people out of their homes and stealing people blind. We'll take a look at this one, folks. PG&E secures $5.5 billion from major banks for bankruptcy filings 3 days ago. 3 days ago, they filed $5.5 billion with 4 major banks funding them because their stock had dropped some 78%. So what do the banks come in and do? They fund them so they can get out of bankruptcy and the filing won't be so bad, and they show solvency so PG&E can continue. They're doing it out of the goodness of their heart to help everybody, aren't they? Bullshit. What did PG&E stock do 2 days later? Surged 75%. And if you know anything about financing, I guarantee you these banks got preferred stocks, which means they leveraged their holdings times gazillions, and they made huge bank. They made huge bank. But guess what that's going to do? It's going to raise all the rates by a huge amount on PG&E homeowners. So these rate hikes will be passed along, of course, to the customers who are just the victims in all this grandiose, grand design, as they call it. And you can see that they're going to raise the hikes on everybody as well. But this came out just 2 days before the fire ignition theory from the Chaparral Institute. Take a look. The Honorable Gavin Newsom letter to saving lives and property from wildfire. This is from the California Chaparral Institute, the Sierra Club, the Center for Biological Diversity, the John Muir Project of Earth Island Institute, and the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, who really cares about the Earth. So this is what they're saying. Get this, folks. Encouraged by the spirit of hope that your new administration brings to Sacramento. Wait, where did we hear hope and change? Hope and change. Where did we hear that from a politician? Hopium? Oh, yeah, 2008 elections. We urge you to take the lead in creating new wildfire policies based on science rather than tradition. Science rather than tradition. Because the traditional approach to wildfire is backward. It focuses on vegetation rather than what we want to protect our families and homes. Well, wait a minute. Aren't you saying vegetation is causing the fires because it's either too wet and it provides a lot of extra vegetation, or it's too dry, it's fuel for the fire, it's dry, it's kindling wood. Let's go on. Homes burn because they are flammable and are built on fire-prone landscapes. What is not a fire-prone landscape? The desert? I mean, they're talking, we got to listen to this. So new wildfire policy based on science, and this is what they come up with. First, second paragraph. Homes burn because they are flammable, built on fire-prone landscapes. Most structures ignite during wildfires because of flying embers. It's boldened. Because they bold it, it means the science is proving it because they use bold. And when they use bold, that means science has proved it, but they don't have to show any links to what they're saying. Any. They just say it and it's true. Because of flying embers? No. They're nanobot, automated, self-replicating technologies that self-organize, ignited by lasers that burn the crap out of the homes, you idiots. Haven't you watched any of the videos? Oh, they can travel a mile or more from the fire front. Where is your freaking evidence? This is why so many families have lost their homes. Evidence, even though they have complied with defensible space regulations. Yeah, the regulatory agencies have failed because they're using new technology called directed energy weapons, you idiots. This is why communities from wildland areas like Coffey Park have been destroyed during wildfire. Excuse me?
How the hell are you guys identifying it? And how do you know they're flying embers? And this is supposed to be a position paper of scientific, remember this one, science rather than fiction tradition. Where it gets good. While wildfire is inevitable, destruction of our communities is not. Well, if they say they're going to do it and they do it, does that mean problem, reaction, solution that they did it? Yes. All right, so now we get some authorities in here. Jack Cohen, former lead scientist for U.S. Federal Service, Forest Service, has demonstrated this through decades of research. Where is it? Where's the links? First among them, capital letters, so it must be true, or bold letters. The wildfire problem is a home ignition problem, not a wildfire control problem. Oh, home ignition problem.
Except it's really not that funny because the joke's on us. And here's what they're going to do is they're going to an all-electric homes. This is why they're requiring all of California to have solar panels on any new homes. But they're getting rid of natural gas, as Deborah Tavares at StopTheCrime.net has been telling us for a few years now. They're going to go to all electric. That's why they're building the 5 mega dams in the central basins of California from Fresno all the way up to Lake County for hydroelectric. All cars are going electric. Your 5G is going to be coming from space platforms, high altitude platforms we'll get to in a little bit here. So is your Wi-Fi for your cars, electric cars, and so is your energy for your homes is all going to be coming from these space platforms. It's all being set in motion now by this fire ignition theory where these little embers crawl in through vents, spark combustion inside your homes, blow it up, where the porcelain, the iron, the thermite, the stones all get crushed, absolutely crushed. And this is the theory they're going to use for now. All homes must have new homeowners insurance with smart devices provided by Amazon Home Insurance. Yet they're global dimming the sun, but they're saying we got to have solar panels for all our energy. Oh my gosh, they got us in a box, folks, and everybody's just dead to the world about all this. And then you got guys like Darius Anderson. Darius Anderson owns the Sonoma Media Group. Darius Anderson also owns the Press Democrat newspaper. Darius Anderson appointed James Lee Witt, the former FEMA director for Clinton, to come in and do the Rebuild North Bay, where James Lee Witt brought in all his cronies and his buddies from India and China in his E5, E6 immigration, where for $1.5 million he brings in 10 mid-level Indian and Chinese workers to start retooling Americans about how to be good slave Chinese manufacturers. That's where we're heading. And who profits? Everybody but us. Red Cross took in a bunch of money. Here, the Redwood Credit Union, Bob Steele, who works for a global disaster capitalism company called Global Alliance, works at board of directors at Redwood Credit Union here, took in $32 million, of which people have not seen a penny. They're coming after California first is setting the proxy, just like they did with the vaccines with SB 277. So now the retiring, disgraced Cal Fire Chief Kem Pimlott is saying that build, burn, and rebuild is probably not such a good idea. The same exact words they used in Malibu on the exact same day that the fires hit on the same day. And they just announced that you probably will not be able to rebuild back into your homes now, because now the homes are ancillary devices, and now all the contracts and homeowners can be renegotiated because it's new conditions, and they make all homeowners insurance null and void. Not that your homeowner insurance is any good for you whatsoever. Can I get a Woody Woodpecker, please? Except it's really no laughing matter, but we have to keep a light heart in this all. The woodpeckers caused the pole to get compromised on a private land. So now all private transmissions, private communications, private lands are all suspect. We got to come in and inspect them because you're the ones that caused the fire. The lone woodpecker in the lone private ranch came through Tubbs Canyon, whipped the winds through all the way over to 101 Santa Rosa, going from, like I said, east to west, over the Mayakama Mountains, through these canyons, roared these embers, and they totally self-controlled, self-mobilized in their nanobots, embers, and they jumped a 6-lane freeway, and they torched a Kmart, 100,000 square foot Kmart. These embers, they are telling us now with their explanation, the fire ignition theory, that it jumped inside the Kmart, torched it to the ground, everything inside was dustified, Oh, but the eucalyptus trees and everything outside were fine. And then they come up with the fire NATO scenario, new term, fire NATO, coming down these canyons from the east to west out here in Santa Rosa area and catching winds where it fired the embers, and the embers jumped the freeways. It torched Fountain Grove, now Fountain Grave, and Coffin Park, or Coffee Park it used to be called, because of the great winds that came out of nowhere when there was no winds predicted. The winds got up to 70, 80 miles an hour, but by 8 a.m. the next morning, they were down to nothing more than 5 miles per hour. So we need to stick to the basics. They're saying now the fire ignition. So the fire ignition theory, how did it make this straight edge line across a ball field at Cardinal Newman, folks? How did a ember flip a car on its roof or melt steel bridges? But even worse than that, we have evidence before the event happened in Santa Rosa here. This is Fountain Grove. Their new green design, the Agenda 21, was mapped out in June, July of 2017, 3 months before the fires happened to hit the same exact areas that were designed to be the new green belt in Santa Rosa. The Planning Commission had already mapped it out, and coincidentally, hard to say, they mapped out and hit the same areas, but they jumped from one area to another. Let's take a look at Google Earth map of how this lays out from where the Tubbs fire began all the way to the Kmart in Santa Rosa.
All right, so to give you an idea here, here's Sacramento, San Francisco down here. Up here to the upper right is Chico, to give you an idea of where we're talking about. Here's the Tubbs fire origins over here to the east. Notice it's east and south that they're saying this traveled. And here's the infamous Kmart, 100,000-foot Kmart. That got scorched on the inside, nothing on the outside. So let's take a look at the terrain. This is saying the path that the Tubbs fire took and the terrain it took. And you can see here from the Tubbs fire origin in Calistoga, where they just had about a month ago a preemptive fire shutdown in Calistoga as well, turning off the power to 12,000 residents for 4 or 5 days because winds got above the red flag warnings of above 20 miles an hour. All right, so look at the terrain, folks, and we're going to follow this across and down. So the Tubbs fire originated in this area right here, okay? Now it went through and hopped over these mountains, the Mayakama Mountains here, and you can see the terrain is very rough and very rigid. Well, how did the fires climb up over there? Well, they didn't. They're saying they came down through these canyons here, all right, and down through these canyons and these roads that have the canyon, they're on the canyons, and they swept all the way through. And then they came down into here, and this is Fountain Grove, now Fountain Grave, except for Keysight Technologies aerospace laser company didn't get touched, but everything around here was pretty much obliterated, okay? And then it does a magic trick, and this is where they really get wild with this stuff. Here's the Kmart. The Kmart's actually a little closer to 101 over this way. But they're saying it went from Fountain Grave and jumped this freeway all the way across and hit the Kmart and torched the 100,000-foot Kmart. So this is the way the path of fire, they say, is going from east to west, southwest, and it went all the way down at some 70, 80 miles an hour, went over the mountains, went through these canyons, ignited again with the embers. The embers jumped across the 6-lane 101 freeway and torched the Kmart and the Arby's and the Trader Joe's, but left the gas stations okay. That's their official narrative, folks. The embers igniting the fires.
And then another primo fascist evidence is these campfires that supposedly now are not going to be called forest fires, that the smoke, how did the smoke come for 8 days over Northern California that were supposedly caused by the smoke from the Paradise fires? Now they're going to try and explain away these clouds and everything were created by home combustion, fire ignition theory inside homes, and that's what caused them to blow up and explode, that the embers got in. This is a fire station here in Santa Rosa that was completely decimated, except for one little items out in front that were not touched at all. Oh yes, the plastic garbage cans and the rubber hoses were not touched at all. Directed energy weapons. And we have many, many questions that we need to keep asking. We don't need to prove that it wasn't. We need to prove their story is bullshit. And what about this picture? Can we ask any CAL FIRE chiefs why this picture exists? Can we find out from anybody why nobody was saved, why nobody was let out? And you're going to tell me fire embers? Embers are going to create thousands of degrees of temperature that's going to burn the crap out of it. So why are they going to log if it's now caused by fire embers? This is caused by fire embers. This is the story. But it's really about the Agenda 21, biodiversity, get people out of the rurals, get them into the stack and pack 'em homes. And as you can clearly see, they're well on their Agenda 21, and they're going towards Agenda 2030, which is even more mass control with less people. Maurice Strong, scumbag that he is, had this to say about, hey, there's just maybe too many people, so it's our responsibility. But the big game plan is to put it all up on these high-altitude space platforms, or HAPS, where they're going to use directed energy, radio frequencies, and lasers to bring them down to the big solar collectives to put all our energy, all your car's Wi-Fi batteries, and all 5G is going to be coming from space in the very near future. So they're going to have some type of events. And here you can see where the focus beams come down to the solar collectives they have in Fresno and other places. And here you can see that they can control hurricanes from the sky, and they do. This is not new research. This is not new evidence. This is not anything new technology. They've only had it, but now they're applying it. They're applying it to torch us out of our homes. They're employing to flood us out of our homes. They're taking away home insurance. And then they love to do the body counts. Here's 44 dead in the California campfires. 4 plus 4 equals 8. Oh, wait, that's 88 dead. 158 still accounted for. There's 6. 8 plus 8 is 16. There's your 666. And then you've got the number games they keep playing down below. 16 dead, 88 dead. That's 666. And then in California, what did they use for the California Tubbs fire? 22 people. So you got 22, 44, and 88. And then you got shills like 33-degree Freemason Ron Howard. I'm going to make a film about rebuilding. Yeah, I'm going to set the new narrative. But what they're telling you, folks, is that it's a pole of woodpecker full where all they have to do is put a metal cage around. This is from a 1990 document about how to protect against woodpeckers, was simply put some wire mesh around the trees and no more problema. How come all these fire forensic experts can't even figure this one out? Can you give me a Woody Woodpecker, please? And in closing, it's disaster capitalism. The head of the Redwood Credit Union here works for a disaster capitalist company. James Witt of O'Brien Witt and Secor Company owns a disaster capitalism. Profit from the disasters. You get the people to donate, you have no cost. It's 100% profit. The head of the Red Cross, Red Crossed, notice how Exxon, the double cross, is the XX, slightly lowercase. The Red Cross is the Knights of Malta. The Red Cross is the alleged Columbus ship. We're now saying, oh, Columbus, now we're not celebrating him anymore. But they don't give the money to the people. Nobody sees the money at all. Why is the Red Cross on the British flag? Why are we have the same exact colors as the British if we supposedly defeated them, folks? We've got to start asking questions about who is doing all this to us, this mind control, sending all your money to think you're helping people. Oh, he came over here to discover a new country when the fact is Columbus never set foot in the United States. In fact, he came back to Haiti and chopped up the children to give dog food for his children. Fact. The Red Cross, the president makes $650,000 a year, and they love to throw it in our faces. This is the movie V for Vendetta. This is their Leviathan cross that they use. It's made out of sulfur. It's satanic. They're telling you what they're doing. The men in black, red and black, those are their colors, and they love to use the red cross just to cross you up. They'll invert it. They'll pervert it. They'll change it. They'll flip it. They'll switch the swastika backwards for negative energy, and then they'll put it in all the symbology because symbols are more powerful than words. And they use the red cross. Look up the East Indian Tea Company flag. It's almost exactly the same flag as the U.S. flag where we were supposed to fight against to gain our independence. Bullshit. They're setting the world on fire. They've told us what they're going to do. They prophesized that ever since the Albert Pike writings back in the late 1800s that they were fomenting 3 world wars, with this being the greatest one of Islamic and Christians destroying each other and the United States also being destroyed. That's why Washington, D.C. was created on February 21st, 1871, with Isis, Persephone, on top of the state capitol. And we know that because each side of the states, of each side of Washington, D.C., is Virginia, and Maryland, the Virgin Mary. It used to be named Rome, Maryland, when John Carroll, who founded Georgetown University 6 months before the Jesuit, gave the land of Rome, Maryland to found Washington, D.C. The White House is named after Andrew White, the first Jesuit Archbishop, Roman Catholic Archbishop, landing in Jamestown on the boat the Freemason, coming ashore, and they honor him with the name of the White House. Who runs the world? They're setting the world on fire, folks, and we've got to wake up fast. And they've been in a club. They have secret societies on secret societies that no one's ever heard of. So if you think of Trump or Obama or somebody that you all talk about like is going to have some power over what is happening in the world, think again, folks. These are just puppets. They're just get you to talk about and use up your energy. But notice all the red crosses of all the flags. They could pick any symbology they want. They could pick any color of their independent countries. But countries are not countries, legalese. They are corporations. So we have to talk about the corporations, not the countries. Google the 100-mile free constitution zone around the United States. Take a look at the borders they've declared are now you have no constitutional rights 100 miles inland from all coasts. According to them, we're a nation of laws, so we must speak about laws. Well, did you know there's a 100-mile constitution-free zone border that has been put out legally around the entire United States, where anyone living in this 100-mile radius, which is a huge percent of the population, have no rights in the Constitution, as you all say, we the people. Well, when they signed the We the People contract, folks, it was the 55 rich land-owning white people. Not if you didn't own land, you didn't get the right to vote. Not if you're a woman. Not if you're a Native American. Not if you're a slave. Nobody had rights for 100 years later, 80 years later. Are you kidding me? We the people? It was the 55 rich white guys that signed the contract, and the contract cannot be assigned. They just sold it to us as we the sheeple. That's what we are. And now they're using the devil, all that they can do. And please understand what their motives are. It's to abolish the government. Look on the new $100 bill in the cursive writing. It's the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence talking about abolishing government. And notice also the gold inkwell and the gold feather going to gold. It's no laughing matter what they are doing, the genocide to us all. And the fire ignition theory is absurd. And we need to speak out or forever hold our peace. Can I just get one more from you, Woody? Just one more and we'll end this. Thank you all.